Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, high drama yesterday at the Supreme Court. The big case, which is going to have massive implications. It is called Mahmoud v. Taylor. And the oral arguments were heard yesterday. I'm sure many of you are very familiar with it. It was saturation media coverage. And for once, the media coverage was actually deserved. I'm not saying it was good coverage, but at least they're focusing on an issue that is going to have massive implications for education, for our children, for parental rights and parental authority, and really for our entire larger culture. And so, at the Supreme Court yesterday is a case stemming from Maryland, in particular the Montgomery County School Board, in which, listen to this, they now mandate, again, I want to stress this, it is mandated that elementary school kids, young children, must attend class in which there are storybook lessons read to these little munchkins. Okay, usually we're talking kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, in which they are actively promoting transgenderism. They're actively promoting the LGBTQ plus agenda, in which they are fed stories like The Prince and the Knight, in which two boys save a kingdom and then fall in love with one another. Or that they're another book that they're being read, and they're basically force-feeding it on the kids, that a niece is worried about her uncle because her uncle is going to marry a man, and will this gay marriage affect her and her relationship with her uncle? There is another book, just to show you how crazy this is. There is another book about don't say these words. It's about a young boy who says, no, I may identify as a girl, and there's nothing wrong if I say call me a she or a her, but sometimes I may feel like an it, or I may feel like a they or a them. My identity may change like the weather, and that's okay. Now, many Muslim parents, ironically, it was not Christians this time, it was Muslim parents, although Christians did join. There are Christian parents absolutely infuriated, Jewish parents as well, frankly, even many non-religious parents. They just care about not brainwashing their children with sexual inappropriate content, who said, why are you teaching this to our kids? Why are you grooming our children? Why are you perverting their minds at such a young age? And so they asked the school if they could opt their children out from the so-called storybook lessons. Initially, the school said yes. The school board said yes. But then on March 22nd, 2023, to the shock and horror of many, many parents, the school board just abruptly, on a dime, said, forget about it. Your child cannot opt out. It is mandatory. They will be taught in the classroom, and your child must attend. Parents were utterly outraged. And so they have now sued the Montgomery School Board, and this case is going to affect every school board in the entire country. So it happens to be in Montgomery, but this is a case with massive national ramifications. It is now in front of the High Court. And the argument that the parents are making, to me, is so commonsensical. It's such common sense. I can't believe we're even having this discussion and this debate. That if parents believe parental rights, parental authority, that they do not, if they do not want their young children to be subjected to sexual content or inappropriate, confusing material, that they believe violates their profound religious beliefs and their profound moral beliefs, that they have the right, after all, they pay the taxes. These are public schools that we're talking about. So this is the public school system in Montgomery County. Well, we pay the taxes. We pay the salaries of the teachers and the principals. We're paying for the schools. If we don't want our children subjected to this, then we have the right to opt out. We already have the right to opt out from musical performances, from high school sex ed classes, from dissections, from all sorts of things. Why can't we opt out when it comes to pushing and ramming LGBTQ content and curriculum down the throats of first, second, and third graders? It's a great question. Listen now to the attorney for the parents. Again, many of them are Muslim families. Good for them. But again, it's not just Muslims, Christians, Jews, even non-religious parents are saying we have the right to religiously object to content being taught to our children. And if we don't want our children subjected to it, there should be an opt-out. And listen now to what the school board is labeling this. You guessed it, white supremacy. This is the attorney for the parents, Eric Baxter, in the oral arguments in Mohammed v. Taylor in front of the High Court yesterday. Roll cut one, Mike.
Hundreds of parents complained, mostly families from Muslim faith and Ethiopian Orthodox, who are objecting when they spoke to the board. The board accused them of using their religious beliefs as another reason to hate, accused a young Muslim girl of parroting her parents' dogma, and then accused the parents of aligning with racist xenophobes and white supremacists.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Seriously. You know, so now Ethiopian parents who happen to be Christian, Orthodox Christians, so they're white supremacists now. So now literally Muslims and many of them are from North Africa and the Middle East who have settled in Montgomery County. Now they're white supremacists now because they don't want transgenderism and homosexual marriage and pushing this fiction that you can have multiple pronouns being pushed on their children. So suddenly now they're part of the KKK. Do you see how insane this is getting? Seriously. Listen now to Justice Kavanaugh. And I thought he made some really, really strong arguments yesterday in terms of asking questions of the school board, the lawyers for the Montgomery School Board. And as he rightly pointed out, Maryland is a state literally founded on religious liberty. It's where Catholics fleeing persecution from England fled to. And now you're saying that these very same people can't, based on religious tolerance, based on religious liberty, can't opt out from a curriculum that is clearly not just offensive, but violates their fundamental religious moral beliefs? Listen now to Kavanaugh saying, I don't get it. We have opt-outs. He goes, I live in Montgomery County. I've lived in it my whole life. We've got opt-outs for everything under the sun. Suddenly now, when it comes to pushing LGBTQ propaganda onto our kids, suddenly now there's no opt-out. Roll cut 2, Mike.
Every other school board in the country has opt-outs for all sorts of things. The county has opt-outs for all sorts of things. The other Maryland counties have opt-outs for all sorts of things. And yet for this one thing, they changed in mid-year and say no more opt-outs. I'm just not understanding feasibility.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. That's the problem. They don't have a leg to stand on, and everybody knows it. They're just trying to ram it through. That's what it's all about. And so, look, and as I said on X yesterday, and I want to repeat it, what they're trying to do, and this is tied to the vaccine issue, this is tied to why we're going to be holding a major rally tomorrow, This is tied to the family. This is tied to really the entire radical LGBTQ plus agenda. They want to strip away parental authority and parental rights from children. That's what this is all about. And again, they want to look at your child. This is what the left wants. And say, we can propagandize them. We can brainwash them. We can indoctrinate them. We can mold them into secular Marxism, into LGBTQ socialism. And there is nothing you, the parents, can do to stop it. Well, the Supreme Court, I believe, if you just look at the tenor, the tone of the questions, is probably now going to rule in favor of the parents 6-3, maybe even 7-2. We shall see. But I think we're looking at a 6-3 ruling. But the question I have for all of you, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, huge case, massive ramifications on many, many levels. And I think this is the argument that I think really sort of sums it all up. According now to the Deputy Solicitor General, Sarah Harris, she says, here's what it comes down to. We're talking about public schools, public education, and what Montgomery County is saying, and by the way, many other counties, not just in Montgomery in Maryland, but across the country, are saying, well, hey, no, look, if you don't want transgenderism being peddled to your, first grade child or second or third grade, your elementary school child, and if you don't want them to be indoctrinated into the LGBTQ plus agenda, then send your kids to a private school or homeschool them. You don't have to send them to a public school. You don't like it? There are other options. Well, listen now to what the Deputy Solicitor General at the DOJ said to that. Roll cut 3, Mike.
Montgomery County offers a free public education to parents only if their children use books featuring same-sex relationships and transgender issues. That burdens parents of multiple faiths whose religious duty is to shield their young children from such content.
Well, of course, it's the parents' duty to shield them from such content. And of course it unduly burdens the parents. I can't believe we're even having this discussion. Hey, look, not everybody is rich. Not everybody's a limousine liberal. Many parents can't afford to homeschool their children. They may want to, but they can't. The mother and the father both have to work, as an example. Or they can't afford tuition at a private school or a parochial school. And by the way, I'm sorry, again, I go back to this argument. They're paying taxes to fund the local public school. So why should they be chased out of their own school? And by the way, and the argument, one of the arguments that the lawyers for Montgomery County, okay, this is basically for the Democrats and the liberals, the argument that the pro-LGBTQ, pro-transgender left, this is their argument. Well, don't just go to school. In other words, if we're going to be giving those lessons on that day, I don't know, The Prince and the Knight, or I Am Many Words. Okay, these are the names of some of these books. Well, just don't go to school that day. You can opt out by having your child stay at home. Listen to this. Roll cut 2A. This is the school board attorney, Alan Schoenfeld. 2A, Mike.
With respect to these books as they were deployed in the classroom, there was high absenteeism in some schools. For example, dozens of students being opted out.
Okay. What about truancy? I mean, every time Mike, Ashton, or Ava are not in school, I get calls, we get emails. Your child wasn't in school today. You have to provide a reason why. They have a certain number of days they can miss. After that, your child can fail. You're going to be held responsible as a parent. Who knows? DCF may even get involved. So whatever. So now, so what? They're going to have to lose custody of their kids because they have to opt out the entire day? And you're saying that's okay? Like, so miss school for the whole day? No. How about here's a radical idea. How about you just don't teach it? And that's what I said yesterday on X. And again, I want to repeat it. Of course, to me, the parents have the right to opt their young children out from mandatory LGBTQ storybook lessons and transgender ideology. To me, there's no question. But beyond the opt-out, why are we even teaching this in the first place? This doesn't belong in schools. Certainly not in elementary school. I don't think it belongs in middle or high school. But let that go. At a bare minimum, it doesn't belong in elementary school. So why are we teaching sexual content to kids? Why are we teaching transgenderism to kids? Why are we teaching, frankly, perversion to kids? Why? This is completely inappropriate. And if you want to know why, here, I'm just going to give you an example, okay? Most countries around the world spend 2, 3, 4 times less per child in education than the United States. Not more, less. No country spends more money per child than the United States. Okay, in the entire world. And yet we have the lowest or one of the lowest reading math proficiency levels in the entire developed world. Our children can't read. Our children can't write. Our children can't do basic math. They can't do basic reasoning. They can't do basic logic. Why? Because this is the garbage that they're being fed all the time. Do you know how time-consuming this is? So this is what they're being fed. This is what the stuff that's being peddled in the classroom. How about, call me crazy, how about you teach reading, writing, math, basic science, and how about a little civics? I don't know, maybe the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, a little bit about the founding of the United States. I'm just saying, maybe a little geography so they know, I don't know, the 50 states, the capitals of the 50 states, get to know their country a little bit more instead of this filth, garbage, and crap. It's now clear. They look at our children as vehicles and vessels to be brainwashed and indoctrinated. That's what this is all about. And they have now become so arrogant and so power hungry that they're telling us to our face that we can put the sickest, some of the most vile, inappropriate ideas into the minds of 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, your children, and you have to take it. Not only do you have to take it, you got to pay for it. And if you dare challenge us, I don't care if you're black, I don't care if you're Muslim, I don't care if you're whatever your racial or religious background, you are a racist and you're a white supremacist. Okay, my friends, winning, winning, winning. That's all we do here at iHeart, my friends. We just cleaned up, listen to this, at the Webby Awards, which you know are the Oscars of the internet. iHeartMedia was officially named the podcast company of the year with an incredible 14 wins. So if you want to hear all of these award-winning podcasts, just open the free iHeartRadio app and dive into our fantastic collection. And of course, as you know, the Kuhner Man podcast, hot. A lot of people want it. They're listening to it. All you got to do is listen to the new iHeartRadio app with preset buttons. That's right. Just set the app to play the Kuhner Report automatically, baby. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, super quick because the lines are blazing. These are the 5 books that are at issue in Mahmoud v. Taylor, okay, in this high court case that's going to have such important consequences for the entire country. And by the way, they're not just used in Montgomery County. In Maryland, they're used by school boards all across the country. All across the country. One of them, and by the way, what they're trying to do, just to show you how devious and diabolical this is, it's a play on Snow White or Cinderella or Peter Pan, but they twist and manipulate and shift it and contort it into now becoming a message or content to promote whether it be transgenderism or gay marriage or lesbianity or the entire rainbow of the LGBTQ plus radical agenda. It really is manipulative and very deceptive. So in one of them, this is one of the books that are read to these kids. It's called Prince and Knight. Two men fall in love after they rescue the kingdom, and then they rescue each other. But the key is they fall in love. In Uncle Bobby's wedding, a niece worries that her uncle will not have as much time for her after he gets married. His partner, of course, is a man. But don't worry. Whoa, hey, there's more. Believe me. Another one is called Love Violet, and it deals with a young girl's anxiety about giving a Valentine to another girl because she's in love with that other young girl. Born Ready. Okay, this is the one about the pronouns. Born Ready is the story of a transgender boy's decision to share his gender identity with his family and the entire world. And that's the one if you want, I have pictures of the actual pages of the book. I can read them out to you. He says he's a girl, then says no. Sometimes he's a they or them. Sometimes he's an it. His identity changes like the weather, but that's okay. If you feel like a girl in the morning and you feel like multiple people in the afternoon and then you feel like nothing or no one in the evening, that's okay. You should be accepted and celebrated for that. Now, think about this. This is what they're reading and teaching 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds. And then the other one, and this is they get everything in this one. It's called Intersectionality. Describes 9 characters of all different sexual transgender backgrounds, including one who is completely gender fluid. Meaning there's one character, I guess, what do you call them, non-binary? They're neither man nor woman. They could be they, them, it doesn't matter. So this is the garbage, to put it frankly. This is the perversion, the dreck that they are peddling and brainwashing and indoctrinating our kids with. And the argument that the left is making, that the Democrats are making, that these school boards are making, is that you as a parent do not have the right to opt your children out of these lessons and this vile content. Now, look, again, if you're an adult, how you swing, how you roll, that's your business. I don't care. But this is unbelievably inappropriate. Frankly, this is child abuse. This sex of any kind does not belong in the classroom. And by the way, and now the left is claiming, I swear, this is book banning. This is book banning. If you want, I can play you the cut. The argument that the lawyers are making at the Supreme Court for the county is, well, you're banning books. How dare you say that these children should opt out of this? This is book banning. This is censorship. No. You want to buy the book? You can buy the book. By the way, no books are banned in the United States. None. That's a complete lie. There's not a single book you can't buy on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or whatever. I use thrift books. I like thrift books. They're used books, and you get great books at a good price, but let that go. It doesn't matter. Wherever you buy, you can buy any book under the sun. Any book ever published. So there is no such thing as book banning. What's next? No, really, what's next? What's that book, Mike? The book with almost like 1,000 positions, sexual positions. It's like one of these classics. Kama Sutra, is that what it is? The Kama Sutra? Okay, what? So next, I'm not kidding. So why don't you teach the kids, 6, 7 years old? You can do it like this. You can do it like that. But hey, some people in India say if you do it like this, you get maximum pleasure out of that. Really, what's what Penthouse? I don't know if they still exist or not. Penthouse, Playboy. Here it is. Look at this, kids. Look at this. Is that affirming your identity? This is garbage, and this is filth. And it has no place in the classroom. And to say this is censorship, or to say that this is quote-unquote intolerance, or an attack on diversity, this is one of the most preposterous, ridiculous, frankly obscene arguments I've ever heard in my life. I would be embarrassed teaching this kind of material to impressionable young elementary school children. And I know I've said it before, but it bears repeating again. Sexual content of any kind. I don't care if it's heterosexual, homosexual, pansexual, transsexual, non-sexual, bisexual, supersexual. You can't keep up after a while. It does not belong in the classroom, especially when we're talking about elementary school kids. And ultimately, let me say what very few people have the guts to say. This is child abuse. And my fear is that the ultimate long-term goal is to mainstream and normalize pedophilia. That's the last taboo they haven't crossed. Men with boys, women with girls, or men with girls and women with young boys. And if children can consent to this. All right, let me ask all of you. It's a double-barreled question, huge question. A lot is riding now on this case in front of the Supreme Court. Should parents have the option to opt their children out from LGBTQ storybook lessons or from transgender content that is now being, or same-sex marriage or whatever it may be, that is now being aggressively peddled into our schools? I say yes. Liberals say no. What say you? And let me ask all of you the ultimate question. Does this even belong in the classroom? Is this now a form of grooming children? A form, really, of child abuse? I say it is. But that's me. I want to hear from you. Let's go to David, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent in Pennsylvania. Thanks for holding, Dave. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How you doing?
Dave.
First of all, Jeff, this is a violation of their constitutional rights on two fronts. One, from the freedom of speech clause, because their tax money is paying for this crap. And number two, because LGBT and the Satanism, if you want to call it that, is the left's religion. They're forcing their religion on people through a school board, which are technically government representatives. Am I correct?
You're completely right, Dave.
And Jeff, another point too. Another fruit that these Democrats are Satanists. What did the president of El Salvador say about Tren de Aragua and MS-13. They worship the devil, Jeff. These people are more sick than...
No, I saw that. No,
Jeff.
Dave, I saw that. I'm not surprised because I've been reading, I'm not saying every article I read about them says this, but I've read several articles and reports that many members of Tren de Aragua and MS-13 I'm not kidding, are Satanists. I mean, literally, they're devil worshippers. And when Bukele, the president of El Salvador, came out and said, listen, look, we know MS-13. That was what destroyed El Salvador for decades. We know Tren de Aragua. We've been dealing with them for years and years. He goes, you Americans have no idea. They don't just murder and rape and, engage in sex trafficking and human trafficking and drug trafficking. He goes, you realize they believe in black magic. You realize they actually worship the devil. And that's you're dealing with terrorists who are really on a scale maybe not as numerous, maybe not as militarily effective, but you're dealing with terrorists on a level like ISIS. You're dealing with evil, psychotic individuals who do some of the most evil, psychotic things imaginable. And you Democrats want them back? You want us to return them to the United States? Are you crazy? But Dave, I don't want to get sidetracked. We've talked about that quite a bit. To me, I want to talk about the children. I want to talk about schools and education. Dave, look, honestly, I'm sure when you grew up, it was different. It was different when I grew up. Whatever happened to the 3 R's? Reading, writing, and math. And notice, those are the things so many of our children, our school kids, are failing on. That's the amazing thing. Many of them are not proficient in reading, and they're not proficient, they can hardly even write, and they're not proficient in math. To the point that you've got the proficiency levels when they graduate from high school, they're barely literate. While by grade 8, places like China and South Korea and Singapore and Finland and these other countries around the world, they're teaching their kids calculus at grade 8, Dave. While we're busy going on about, are you a boy? Are you a girl? Are you gay? Are you straight? Are you non-binary? Are you an it? Are you a they? Dave, they're destroying our children. They're literally destroying them in front of our eyes. Am I wrong, Dave?
No, Jeff, you're 100% right. And just a couple of more points, Jeff, and I won't steal your thunder. And I'm sorry for drifting off into another subject, but they kind of correlate. You know what I'm saying, Jeff?
Yes.
2 more points, Jeff. The very people that throw this garbage and there's tolerance and diversity. They love getting on their satanic pulpit and preach it, Jeff, but they don't practice it. Second of all, Jeff, I sent you that thing on Facebook about the tax money. It's still our money, Jeff. That's our freedom of speech is the money. You put your money where the mouth is. And, Jeff, what happened? They're not teaching the Constitution. They're teaching the Constellation. And, Jeff, I remember in 8th grade, we were already taught pre-algebra. That was right. Am I right, Jeff, about 8th going into the 9th grade when you were taught pre-algebra?
Yeah, 8th grade, yes, pre-algebra. Yes, Dave, you're completely right.
And Jeff is a welder and a former veteran. I got to know my math just as good as anybody because I'm a welder. You know what I mean, Jeff? I got to know how to convert fractions to decimals. I mean, I got a chopper for me, but it's not like I got the nuns breathing over me, a Vatican I Catholic with a ruler across my head. You know what I mean, Jeff? But that's what these kids need today, Jeff. They need to be exercised. I think a Democrat, the next time they make the movie Exorcist, Jeff, they need to say demonic demons leaving Democrats. It would be a great movie.
Dave, thank you very much, as always, for your call, my friend. Again, look, I don't want to sound like, one of these, back in my day. But really, 8th grade, it was pre-algebra. Harvard University, okay, which, as you know, is now suing the Trump administration. Okay, but let that go for now. Now is teaching its students, listen to this, this is Harvard. Okay, in theory, along with Yale and Princeton and Columbia, one of the most elite, in theory, elite universities in the world. Forget the United States, the world. They're teaching their students, remedial math. remedial math. That's Harvard. Okay? That's how bad these leftists have destroyed our public education system. So you attend one of the most prestigious, elite, supposedly qualified universities, competitive universities in the world, and they literally cannot do basic mathematics. And because this is the kind of garbage our schools are focused on. And let me just play one cut, and I want to go back to the phone line. 617-266-6868 is the number. This is Evan Glass. He's a member of the Montgomery County Council. And, of course, a Democrat, obviously. And this is beautiful. I'm not kidding. This is that we're teaching these kids and reading them these books and applying these lessons. This is what education is all about. Roll cut 7, Mike.
There are kids who go home to rainbow families, showing the beautiful diversity that exists. And we know that a number of our kids are LGBTQ+. And the reality that we're talking about today is people want to erase us from books. They want to erase us from existing. And are we going to let them erase us? No, we are not.
These people are insane. There are, I don't know how many books out there about gays, lesbians, transgender. It's now the new vogue. It's a fashion now to be transgender. Seriously, it's like it's the it thing to do, the in thing to do in schools. They can't pump out teenage books, teenage novels, young teen novels, shows, you name it, promoting the LGBTQ lifestyle. What is this guy talking about? So who's erasing who? No one's being erased. It doesn't belong in the classroom. Can you get that through your thick head? That's number one. Number two, notice now, and this is very dangerous, okay? This is why our education system, frankly, is in the toilet. And it has nothing to do with the teachers. There are outstanding teachers who are doing everything they can to try to give our children a decent, good education. But look at the curriculum. Look what they're up against. Notice now this obsession with quote-unquote identity. What does identity have to do with your education? It's the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard. No, really. By the way, people have multiple identities. I mean, just to give you an example, I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a talk show host. I'm a Christian. I'm a Catholic. I'm a conservative. I'm a constitutionalist. I'm an America First Trump supporter. I'm of Croatian descent. I'm an American. I mean, my point is, you know, I'm a journalist. I mean, I could just go, I was a former university professor. We see ourselves in multiple ways. Of course, we're all distinct human beings. And ultimately, I see myself as Jeff Kuhner, okay? But what I'm saying is, we all see ourselves through different lenses, different identities. We take on different roles. So, you know, this is the problem. You could now do this ad infinitum. Really, if you want to be a rabble-rouser, well, I'm an American of Sicilian descent. How come there's no books about Sicilian Americans? No. What about my Sicilian heritage? Why isn't that? I'm just using that as an example. Why isn't that being affirmed? Here, I'm of Croatian descent. There's not a single storybook with a Croatian American in it. Why not? Hey, there's not a single story. Where's the MAGA character? We want MAGA. We want to be represented. Hey, how about Catholics? There's not a single Catholic. Hold on. What about Christians? And then, what about Buddhists? What about Hindus? What about Jews? What about Muslims? Do you see? It's the Tower of Babel. That's what they're creating. It's the Tower of Babel. It's going to tear this country completely apart. So you're so insecure as a human being that you're telling me that if you don't see a transgender character in a storybook, or if you're not shoveling books down the throats of kids, that a boy marries a boy, or a man marries a boy, or a girl falls in love with a girl, that you're so pathetic that, they taught me 2 + 2 is 4, but where's my identity? No, they taught me about H2O, water. That's what they taught me. And it, oh my God, the different components. Oh, a sentence has a subject, verb, and object. These people are nuts. And I'm telling you, it reminds me of it's exactly what the communists did in the old Soviet Union. It was always Marxism-Leninism. It's not science, it's Marxist science. It's not reading or writing, it's Marxist reading and writing. No. It's not history, it's Marxist history. Everything had to go through a radical ideological lens. It was not about education. It's about brainwashing and indoctrination. And really, as Alan Dershowitz said, this is propaganda. This is propaganda. You know, as Dershowitz recently said in an interview, look, I'm telling you, this is gay rights, LGBTQ, transgender propaganda. In fact, to show you the level of propaganda, here, I'll play you the cut. And Dersh is completely right on this. He says, do you realize that they now are claiming in public schools, under the guise of these so-called lessons, that you cannot be for gay rights and for Israel? That's another thing now they're trying to slowly, insidiously put into the school system. That you have to be pro-Palestinian. You have to be pro-Hamas. What does this have to do with an education for our children? Like, what is this, the West Bank? The Gaza Strip? Listen now to Alan Dershowitz saying the right of parents to opt out from these propaganda teachings. He says it's going to be upheld. He thinks it's going to be 6-3. It may even go 7-2 or 8-1. Roll cut 9, a Mike.
The right of parents to opt their children out of propagandistic teaching about gay rights and about other social issues will be upheld by the Supreme Court. It will be either a 6-3 decision, or maybe even some of the liberals will come along. Some of the liberal justices saw problems with the implications of this. Well, what else can parents object to?
So, in other words, if they do vote against the parents to opt out, it'll be because they fear what the consequences of this may be, that they can start opting out from all sorts of other things. But Dershowitz says if they go anywhere close to the merits of the case, this should be a 9-0 decision. Obviously, the parents have the right to opt out. Are you insane? Now, one more cut, then I want to go right back to the phone lines. Listen to him. This is Mahmoud V. Taylor. He's saying gay rights and the so-called LGBTQ agenda that they're peddling in schools, it's political, it's ideological, it's far left. It has nothing to do, even believe it or not, with gays or lesbians or any of that. They're ramming Marxism down the throat, and anti-Semitic, anti-Israel Marxism down the throats of our children in the name of quote-unquote diversity. Roll cut 9A, Mike.
You know, today gay rights is so mixed in with political rights. CNN had a big program yesterday where you had a transgender woman standing in front of a large cheering crowd saying, you cannot support transgender rights unless you oppose Israel and call Israel a genocidal country. What You can't support gay rights. You can't support women's rights unless you're opposed to Israel. Israel's the only country in the Middle East that supports transgender rights and gay rights. And yet these people think that under intersectionality, which is the movement that unites gay rights, climate rights, and other rights together, you can't separate gay rights today from political posturing, and therefore it's going to be a very easy case for the Supreme Court. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets close to unanimity on this one.
You know what? He may be onto something. And by the way, that's the key phrase, intersectionality. Remember that one. That's the key phrase, because that's what they're pushing in universities. That's what they push in high schools, middle schools, elementary schools. This is what they all talk about. MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, the Democratic Party, progressives, all across the country. This is the phrase now. Intersectionality. And in a nutshell, what does it mean? Everything intersects. You see, it's totalitarian. So you have to support gay rights. You have to support then radical feminism. That's all part of the intersectionality. Transgenderism, being hating Israel, being pro-Palestinian, being pro-Hamas, support climate change, hate Donald Trump. It's all of it is tied together. You can't be for one without being for the other, and you have to be for all of them together. And that's what they want to impose, and that's what they are imposing successfully at the university level. But they don't want to just content themselves at the university level, because what people don't realize is most Americans do not go to college. The overwhelming majority of Americans go to high school or get a trade or whatever and do not go on to higher education. So you have to get them in the schools, in the elementary schools, get them young. As the Jesuits famously said, and this is what the left now understands, give me a child until they're 12, and they're ours forever. Brainwash them or indoctrinate them until the age of 12. Essentially, elementary school. We get them then, and they're ours forever. That's what this battle is really about. Larry in Leominster. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome.
Gee, so glad that, the USA is number one across the board in education, and we have time for this. Oh. Just let me ask you a question really quick. When you heard, like, your parents or your grandparents, not yours specifically, but when you heard that term, well, he dropped out of school with an eighth grade education, what did that mean to you?
Didn't finish college didn't finish high school and probably wasn't very well educated.
But what were they taught by the time eighth grade rolled around?
Well, they were taught to read, they were taught to write, they were taught math. I mean, they were able, believe it or not, you're right, they were able to function, completely function.
But they were taught Latin, they were taught Greek. They were already into trigonometry back then.
That's right.
Learning civics and all that stuff. So when when kids today hear, my grandfather only had an eighth grade education, that grandfather was smarter than these college graduates are. It's insane. Now, it's what? We're talking about 17 years ago when the Supreme Court said gay marriage was okay. I got excoriated for putting it on Facebook. I said, this is a slippery slope. And pretty soon they're going to be teaching this stuff in the schools, and they're going to be normalizing pedophilia. All these liberals on my page are saying, oh, you're wrong, you're crazy, that is, that's too far. Well, welcome to the reality.
Larry, I think history has proven you're right. And I think they're very close to their ultimate goal. It's bit by bit by bit. They just, as Mark on Messenger messaged me maybe 20 minutes ago, said, Jeff, what they're doing is they're opening the door to pedophilia. Little by little by little. And so it's boys having sex with boys, it's girls having sex with girls, boys with girls, girls with boys, sexualizing and grooming our children. Children now can give consent for having sex with each other, for not being vaccinated, for having, puberty blockers and hormones, and they can transition. It's Wednesday. You know what that means. Truth or troll. Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
Today's entry for Truth or Troll comes from a Lancaster, California City Council meeting where Mayor Rex Paris offers up his solution to the issue of homelessness.
It sounds like you want to kind of enclose all these homeless people in one territory. And
what I want to do is give them free fentanyl. I mean, that's what I want to do.
Do what?
I want to give them free fentanyl.
I can't understand what you're saying. You wanted to get them what?
I want to give them all the fentanyl they want. That's what I want.
That was not kind.
It's kind of wild, isn't it? So what do you think, Jeff? Is he just trolling, or is he deadly serious about this?
I think he's trolling. I'll be honest. I don't know what you think, Mike, but I think he's trolling. I think he's frustrated. He's a frustrated mayor, maybe even a small business owner or whatever, and they keep, urinating and defecating in front of his business, and he's just had a bad day and, just vented. But, it was completely out of line, out of bounds. Homeless people are people too, it's, give them all fentanyl and kill them off. Yeah, no, I think his political career is over, Mike, but that's me. All right. I want to ask all of you, you heard the mayor from California, Southern California. He was saying, give them all fentanyl. Just basically kill them all. Kill all the homeless people. Free fentanyl and just, let them all OD to death. Is he A, telling the truth? Is he sincere? Does he really believe this? Or B, was he just venting and trolling? He just wanted to get stuff off his chest, but he's not serious. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN as in National ER. As always, you can vote on X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, KUHN as in National ER. Jim in Rochester. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Jim.
Jeff, I think that mayor is 100% speaking his mind, and give the people what they want. If that's the life you want to live, go ahead, take it and run with it. But going back to the book thing, Jeff. In Rochester, we are a school district. We have two other towns, Marion and Mattapoisett. And unfortunately, Rochester is the only conservative-thinking town in that district. We've been fighting the books since COVID time. And basically, we've asked for book reviews to the school committee, and they keep approving these books. They keep approving them. It's very liberal. There's only one real conservative on the high school committee. And our elementary school in Rochester, they have also allowed these books to seep in. And I will challenge anybody in Massachusetts to look into their school libraries and find out if these books are in there. And I guarantee you they are. And they're far worse than the ones that you're describing.
Well, Jim, you're not 100, you're 1,000% correct. And so that's why when these idiots, these moonbats, and these Democrats are running around like chickens without a head, saying, oh, it's book banning, it's book banning. What books are being banned? You can get them in any public library. You can get them in most school libraries. And if you can't get them at the elementary school, you can certainly get them at the middle or the high school school library. So if a parent really wants to teach their kids these sick things, okay, just go to the local school library or the high school library or the public library. It's right there. Bring the book home, and your kid can read it all day and all night. But why do you have to ram it down the throats of my children or your children or everyone else's children? And really, Jim, look, I can't even read on air. I'm telling you, I would be fined millions of dollars and thrown off the air. If I read to you, and you're an adult, and most people listen to this show, I mean, a few kids in the car with their parents, but mostly they're adults, you would find it sickening. It would turn your stomach. Literally, you would say, Jeff, this is so inappropriate. It's obscene. The stuff that they are peddling to our kids, but I can't read it on the air. If I did, I would be fined. You go to these school board meetings and parents like you show up and say, well, here's what you're teaching my kid. And they just start reading. And the school board says, stop, because this is so disgusting that, we can't have you continue. So this is what I mean. So no, it's pornography. In fact, I think it's even worse than pornography. It's bordering on sex abuse and child abuse. It's grooming. Honestly, Jim, they're grooming and sexualizing our kids. And they're trying to put the most sickest, perverse ideas into their minds. And it's not even, some of it is obviously very sexual, but some of it is just, you're a they. You're multiple people. You're not a person. You're an it. You're non-binary. In other words, you're not male. You're not female. You're, you're just this lump of cells. It's why? Why would you be doing this to our children? Especially at the age, you know how it is, when they're 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, very impressionable, very immature. They're still developing, very susceptible. They don't have the emotional, intellectual, psychological, cognitive maturity to even deal with these issues. Never mind the sick, disgusting sexual content that you're completely right, that if I read on the air, I'd be kicked off in a second. So if it's inappropriate for you, for adults, if it's inappropriate for me to say on the air that I would be fined millions of dollars, if it's inappropriate to even read at school board meetings. Okay, I've said this before and I'll say it again. iHeart is the gold standard. And whether it's talk radio, like this show, The Kuhner Report, or podcasting. And listen now to this. Big news. We have just been named the 2025 Podcast Company of the Year by the Webby Awards, also known as the Oscars of the Internet. We snagged 14 wins. Yes, baby. And we couldn't be prouder. I want to give a big shout out to the International Academy of Digital Arts and Sciences for this absolutely incredible honor. You can find all of these award-winning podcasts, including, of course, the Kuhnermans, on the free iHeart Radio app. So go check them out right now. You can listen to the new Radio iHeart app with preset buttons. You can set the app to play the Kuhner Report automatically. All right, 617-266-6868 is the number. This is from 603, and it goes right to the point that we were just making just before we went to break. And it's a brilliant text. It really is. And it shows you how twisted and perverse and evil, borderline demonic all of this is. Jeff, And by the way, you can text us 70470, 70470. Jeff, this case before the Supreme Court, Mahmoud v. Taylor, is directly related to all the instances of groups of concerned parents going to school board meetings to get books like these removed from both the curriculums and the school libraries. The aforementioned books in question are so sexually explicit that reading the contents of them actually breaks the rules of the school board meetings. And parents have been prevented from doing it, or they face being removed from the meeting. Moreover, the content is so explicit that the Kuhner man could not read sections of these books, this is very true, on the air because they would violate FCC regulations on obscenity. Yet it's okay to read the same sexually explicit material to 5-year-olds? You know, and then 603 continues. Jeff, you remember when you were 12 years old and your parents wouldn't let you hang around with a particular kid or a group of kids because they were a bad influence and because you were young and you were impressionable? And what would they always tell you? Quote, he's a bad influence on you, unquote. How is this material, or even these teachers who are pushing this, any different? It's true. My parents used to tell me this all the time. Don't hang out with this group of kids. Don't hang out with that person, that kid. I'm talking 11, 12, 13 years old. Why? Bad influence. No, don't get in with that crowd. It's a bad crowd. Bad influence, Jeff. What the hell is this? Now, to show you, and I promise I want to go back, the lines are jammed, and I want to go back to the great audience and the great callers. But one of the books that they're peddling to school kids. Now, it's not the 5 that we're talking about at Montgomery County. Okay, it's not quite that bad, those 5 books. But this is more for 6th grade, 7th grade. These books are more 1st grade, 2nd grade. But even 6th grade, 7th grade. So we're talking now, 11, 12, 13 years old, whatever it is. And I'm saying, I just want to give them a taste of what they're teaching these kids. And first of all, I'm like, I can't get around the FCC regulations. I'm going to get fined. And the audience is going to be disgusted. They're going to turn me off just because they don't want to hear it. Or I got kids in the car now with their parents and they don't want to hear that. I mean, they'd be shocked and horrified. And so I'm thinking, how do I say it? How do I say it? So let me just say it like this. Okay. This is as inoffensive as possible. And I'm really leaving a lot out. 2 12-year-old boys, 12 years old, are attracted to each other. One drops their pants and is completely, naked from the waist down. And then asks for certain acts to be performed. Let me leave it at that. That's what they're pushing in school. Public schools, in the curriculum. And they're telling us that parents don't have the right to opt out based on religious grounds or moral grounds? Are you crazy? Are you sick? Like, really, are you sick? This is what I mean when I say this is sexual abuse. This is child abuse. This is grooming. They are grooming our kids. They are normalizing the sexualization of our children. This, even 20 years ago, forget 30, 40, 50, 20 years ago, there would be a national uproar. I mean, my God, millions of parents would take to the streets. Now, you've got Democrats supporting this and defending this. Now, the reason why, super quick, the reason why Dershowitz thinks you may even get a couple liberal justices to join the other 6, okay, Roberts and the 5 conservative justices, is even Elena Kagan. Elena Kagan, you don't get more far left than Elena Kagan. Listen now. She said, I was struck. This is what, a 70-year-old woman? She goes, these books and the pictures in the books and the content in the books on sexuality, on transgenderism, on, man meets man, woman meets woman. She's like, whoa. I don't think you have to be religious to find this really offensive. Roll cut 4, Mike.
I too was struck by these are young kids, picture books, and on matters concerning sexuality. I suspect there are a lot of non-religious parents who weren't all that thrilled about this, and then you add in religion, and that's even more serious.
It's disgusting. I got to say, even a stop clock is right twice a day. She's usually wrong. But on this one, she's like, hey, look, really, you don't even have to be religious. I mean, this is not appropriate for kids, period. I don't know what planet you're living on. Again, unless you're a pedophile. Or you want to molest kids, or you want to sexualize kids, or you want to groom kids, or you hate kids, or... Look, as someone messaged me on Messenger, and I think this is the simplest way and the most honest way to say it, and I know it's not popular in our secular age, but it's true. They have taken God out of the schools and replaced him with Satan. I'm telling you, this is the devil. I don't see this is... Children... I'm just thinking of, look, I'm not talking 6, 7, 8 years old. I'm thinking my Ava, 12 years old. She would find this deeply disturbing, deeply offensive. Even Ashton would find it disturbing. He's 15, but Ava at 12 would be like, Daddy, please, I don't want to see this. Like, why am I being taught this? The innocence of a child is the most precious, vulnerable thing in the world. And we all eventually lose our innocence. We get older. That's life. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, it's the Kuhner Country poll question of the day. Sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. And this one may surprise you. So let me ask all of you. Do you know what your children, or let's say the grandparents out there, your grandchildren, do you know what's in their textbooks? Do you know what's in the textbooks of your children or grandchildren? Do you know, in other words, do you know what they're being taught? A, yes. B, no. You can read, and if you don't, I suggest you start looking at those textbooks, but that's me. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is a national ER, and again, you can always vote on X. Again, I was very active on X about this very issue. You can vote there as well. My handle, it's all one word, at the Kuhner Report, KUHNER, at the Kuhner Report. I'm a yes, but how do I say this? I could be a better yes. What I mean by that is, because I help the children with their homework, I have a good idea of what's in their textbooks, obviously. But, do I go through their textbooks? Like, in other words, hey, Junior, Ashton, let Daddy see all your textbooks and let me go through them one by one. No. Or Ava, Sweet Cheeks, let me, Ava Bear, let me take a look at all of your textbooks and let me go through them. I don't. Now, maybe I should. Maybe I'm being a tad too lax. But overall, I help them both with their homework. So does Grace. So I figure, between the two of us, we're enough of...
I don't care what other people do. That's what you do. That's always been the case. You do what you do. This is America. We have the freedom to do that. But what they are doing to our children, this is debauchery. This is, when I saw it, I couldn't believe. It's like Sodom and Gomorrah is what these people want. This is what's happening. What you're talking about right now ties directly to what you were talking about yesterday. And when you use the term demonic, it's not a light term. You're not using it lightly. This is for real. People better understand that. This is for real. They want the children. And the way to get them is in elementary school. Because I'm older than you, but you were educated during the time when your parents didn't have to check your textbooks for sexual content, because everything that your textbooks revolved around was the subject being taught. Now, I'm educated from New York, and, public school, one of the best school systems it was in the country, I think. But that's not what's happening now. They're more concerned about capturing their minds. And what better way to do it than to capture their curiosity about sex? This thing is leading to even incestuous relationships in families. It's leading to a lack of any kind of moral standards. And that's what they want. Just like we see them running around here with pink hair and purple and green and black hair, all kinds of stuff. And just parading around naked. This is not normal stuff. And these people, I do believe, have been, I don't know, they've been maybe playing with too many Ouija boards, or there's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with them. And we've got to fight. And I am so proud of the Muslims who did start this, and all the people who are taking this thing to court, because this is, Montgomery County is standing up, but this is throughout the state of Maryland. Because I live in the Baltimore County area, and I saw the books that are in the library. I couldn't believe it. I'm from that old school when I remember when we were in Italy, and the kids found some porn in the trash can. Oh, and the boys were all gathered around, and one of the officers' wives, she came and she says, "Bob, the kids, they've got this porn." And it's the kind of thing I remember, like with my brothers, they would have like their the Playboys that they would find somewhere, however, and that was the source of pornography in my day. And now all they got to do is take their phones out, which I think is a big mistake. Young people should not have access to the internet. Not with what's on there, not at such a young age. And too many people use that iPad and that iPhone, they use that as a babysitter. And what their children are seeing, they don't even know. They say, "Oh, well, I'll check the history." You can delete history. And a lot of these kids have more tech savvy than their parents do. You're not going to be able to stop them from seeing this crap on the phone. I begged my children, begged them. I said, just get the kids a dial phone. All they need is a little flip phone so they can call if there's an emergency. You can get in touch with them wherever they are. That's all they need. And I remind you didn't have a phone. You didn't have a phone. Ma, you just old-fashioned. All the kids got it now. And here, yes, they do. And now look at where our kids are. This was planned. It was planned, and now they're executing it. And if we don't fight it, people right now who have children, if you don't fight it, you're going to lose them. Your kids are going to be lost if you don't stand up. And I think the public schools should just be ended. The public schools right now, in my opinion, are just breeding grounds for criminal activity, debauchery, and lack of education. The kids are coming out of there. In Maryland, we have children who graduated that can't read. They don't read at an 8th grade level. You asked the question earlier about what you would think about when someone had 8th grade education. I tell you, the first thing I would think, especially, that's a hardworking person. if they made it through adulthood and have a family and have an 8th grade education, that's a hardworking person, because you do have everything you need to function because of the education at that time. By the 8th grade, you know how to function. You know how to count money, you know how to add, you know how to write, you know how to read, and you can function. If you got skills and a work ethic, you can become very successful. Henry Ford proved that. You don't need to have the technical knowledge. You hire those people. So that's what is happening here. Our kids are missing. It's sad. It's really sad to watch, because
Barbara, you're on a roll.
People fighting.
Oh, Barbara, you're dead on. Look, Barbara, I've got to ask you this. When you saw what's being peddled in the schools and in the libraries, and you said, Jeff, it's sick, it's beyond sick. Do you think this is a form, I know it's a loaded question, but do you think this is now almost a form of child abuse? That what they're subjecting our children to, really, you would have, 20, 30, 40 years ago, you would have been arrested. I mean, Barbara, am I wrong?
They should have been arrested. These books have no place in the school. When I saw them, and I was at a meeting where they just had them out on the table, so you could see. You can't wrap your mind around it. And here in Maryland, these Democrats, they don't have we don't have voter ID here. And I am convinced if we did a Doge investigation, forensic type stuff here in Maryland, a lot of these people are going to jail, and they're going to find so many dead people voting, so many illegals that are voting. I cannot believe that the people of Maryland are this stupid to continue to vote for the same party that's destroying everything, their family, everything. It's destroying their business. Our businesses are getting ready to leave here because we got a governor who thinks we need to put a 3% tax on tech companies. Well, guess what? Tech companies don't need a brick and mortar. They're virtual. They can go to any state and put their home base. They don't have to be home based here. This state is run by fools.
So, Barbara, you're talking, and I'm like, boy, she's describing Massachusetts, or California or Illinois here. Barbara, as always, dynamite. Thank you very, very much for that call. And look, I think she really put her finger on it. When Larry asked the question about an hour ago, if I said to you someone has an 8th grade education, I'm like, well, it depends in what time. Like, for example, my grandfather had an 8th grade education, and everything what Larry said is true. 8th grade, and I mean, I'm not trying to insult him. He was a peasant. Okay, he was a farmer, a peasant. He always said, I'm not an educated man. He never graduated high school. Okay, because of the war, World War II, Nazism, communism. I mean, the poor guy was lucky to get out of there alive. But he had an 8th grade education. He knew Latin. I'm not saying he was a Latin scholar. My grandfather, I don't know Latin. Okay? I know a few phrases. I know a few words. I don't know Latin. My grandfather knew Latin. My grandfather, his mathematics, he was almost at an algebra level because of how good the education was. His penmanship. My mother would always say, this is about the Kuhner grandfather, not her father, but my father's father, that his penmanship, she said, my God, it's so beautiful. You almost can, it's like you want to frame it on a wall. He knew how to write. He knew how to read. As Barbara said, he knew mathematics up and down. He knew how to reason. He knew how to think. He knew geography. He had a good grasp of history. He had a very good grasp of basic science. In other words, by the 8th grade, he was already ready to, and that's it. That's all he ever had. And he was ready to take on the world. I'm not talking high school. I'm talking 8th grade. Now, you fast forward now. If someone says, well, this person's got an 8th grade education, I'm thinking they're really not very educated. Like, honestly, that's now, today. I'm like, do they know how to read? Seriously. Can they even do basic math? Can they even write? Are they literate? Literally, are they literate? So the public school system, if it's possible, look, I'm not the only one. Many scholars, many social critics have made this point. It's actually dumbing our children down. It's almost as if take your child and do nothing. Do nothing until 14. Like just whatever, just play. Just go outside and play. And it's like your child will be better off than if you put him into school. Because they actually turn out stupider. They come out dumber and stupider and more confused and more brainwashed and more indoctrinated after until the 8th or 9th grade. So you go, okay, they've been in school now for 8, 9, 10, 10 years. And oh my God, they're actually dumber than when they went in 9 years ago. That's what's starting to happen. It's now diseducation, uneducation, lack of education. And I mean, look at this. If I explain to you what they're teaching these kids in school, you would throw up. You would literally throw up. Here, I'm just going to, again, very general. I want to say it in an inoffensive way as possible. In the 1950s and the 1960s, really even until the 1970s, the number one complaint of teachers in elementary, middle, and high school, chewing gum and talking in class. I remember even in the 80s when I was going through high school, that was the number one complaint, talking in class, basically. Kids won't shut up. They're always talking. I tell them to be quiet. You fast forward now to today. Do you know what the number one, outside of violence, that's their number one complaint, that they're constantly being assaulted or there are fights breaking out everywhere, that the schools are not safe, okay? The second complaint, I'm talking about urban areas, not so much yet, it's coming, but not quite in suburban areas. But I don't care whether it's New York, Boston, Atlanta, LA, Chicago, Dallas, whatever, Las Vegas, take your pick. The complaint right after violence is that during recess, or when the bell rings in between classes, that students, how do I say this? It's a family show. Monica Lewinsky, Bill Clinton. That students in the hallway, in lockers, in the bathroom, are being serviced by other students. Let me just leave it at that. Look it up. They're saying you don't understand. It's disgusting. B, STDs are spreading because it's so anonymous and it's so promiscuous. But they go, they're turning the schools into bordellos, into a whorehouse where they're being serviced. And the girls think nothing of it. The boys think nothing of it. Boys are servicing boys. Boys are servicing girls. Girls are servicing girls. Girls are servicing boys. It doesn't matter anymore. And they have no respect for themselves, no respect for others. And it's anonymous. It's rampant. It's permissive. It's promiscuous. They go, you don't understand what they're teaching these kids and the behavior that it's now creating. So that by the time they hit 13 or 14 or even 12, they're engaging in behavior that is so abhorrent that they are absolutely shocked, that they can't believe this is happening in the United States of America. As Barbara said, it's Sodom and Gomorrah. And that's, by the way, that's the content in these books. And again, I don't want to be gross. I'm just trying, it's, hi, what's your name? I'm just going to make up a name. My name is Jenny. Oh, I'm Jim. Bang. Hi. And drop the pants and hi. And the book is about this is how you do it and this is what creates the most pleasure. And this is effing sick. And the media are portraying these parents like they're a bunch of raging religious bigots. No, you're a white supremacist. This is Nazism. This is Hitler. No, you're nuts. You're insane. That's what this is. You're insane. Brian in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Brian, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Brian.
Hi. I wanted to bring up a little on the, in this country, the backbone has been the family, God and family, and we see so much of the breakdown of the family, and it's happened in abortion, it happens with kids that don't have to tell their parents they want to have sex change, get mutilate their bodies, boys playing on girls' sports teams, and even like this case in Fitchburg where you talked about the parents that won't vaccinate their children, that they separate the kids from the parents, and all the things that you're bringing up. I've noticed that all of this breakdown of the family, and the left doesn't seem to care anything about the breakdown and the damage they do to family. But the one time I've noticed where they seem to care about family is when there's an illegal criminal comes over here and he gets sent back to his country and jailed. Now all of a sudden they care about family. They care about the wife and the kids. All of a sudden the family gets brought up. In that case, that seems to be the only time they care about family.
Because, Brian, the ultimate goal is that they're there to replace us. That's the ultimate goal. That's why they're bringing in so many illegals. Okay, I've just been told by many of you in the audience, the great listeners of Kuhner Country, that we were off the air for about a good 10 minutes. Between roughly 8 to 8:10 Eastern time here. I don't know what's going on. Obviously, we were hacked. And this is going to be a problem going forward. And I have to talk it over with management. I've got to talk it over with a lot of people here at iHeart. It's obvious they're trying to sabotage the message. Somebody out there is trying to sabotage the message of this show. And Barbara's call, about a good chunk of it, apparently was also off the air. And I don't know if people are afraid of the message. I don't know if this is a ham-handed, ham-fisted attempt at censorship, but it's not going to work. And so I'm just going to repeat it again. Literally, they have taken God out of the classroom and replaced him with the devil. I think it's obvious what's going on. And this is perverse. It's evil. It's Sodom and Gomorrah. And the lessons that they're trying to give to these children is something that I'm telling you, if as an adult, if you were to read at a school board meeting, or if I was to read to you on the air, I would be fined millions of dollars by the FCC, and I would most likely lose my job on the spot, rightfully so. So if it's that inappropriate and that diabolical and that sick and evil and twisted that you can't say them in front of adults at school board meetings, or you can't say it on the air to one of the biggest audiences in the country, comprised of adults, I mean, outside of the children being driven to school by their parents as they listen, you're telling me it's appropriate for elementary school kids? Or for middle school kids? And the content, really, it's so sexual, it's so explicit, it's so vile. It almost makes pornography look tame. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable, the stuff that they're now exposing our children to. And just to show you that Massachusetts is following Maryland and California and New York and Oregon and Washington and Minnesota and Colorado. So I just was told by a texter, apparently now there's a bill being pushed here in the state legislature by apparently an openly gay member of the state legislature down on Cape Cod that would prevent parents from blocking or protesting or prohibiting inappropriate or sexually explicit content in classrooms or in the library. So They're telling us it's our children, the government owns our children, and they can do whatever they want to our children, including force feed them perversion and filth. Literally. The most perverse, obscene, disgusting stuff imaginable. And as I said to Barbara, and I'm going to say it again, because it's true, even 20 years ago, if you as an adult, whether it be to your own children, to family members, to strangers, it doesn't matter. If you presented to a 10, 11, 12-year-old child the exact same material that they are now pushing on kids in schools like in Montgomery County, you would be arrested. You would be arrested. So I don't know if they censored that. I don't know if we're off the air again. I don't know. Okay? But there it is. The truth is, I'm not going to stop speaking it. And we shouldn't either. The truth is the truth is the truth, period. And so that's why we have to make a decision. And that's why I've said this Supreme Court case, Mahmoud v. Taylor, is going to have massive national consequences and ramifications. And the liberals know it. And the liberal justices know it. That's why Elena Kagan is so conflicted. Because on the one hand, she looks at this and goes, my God, this is disgusting. I mean, this is shocking. This is obscene. And on the other hand, it's like, oh no, this could cost us the revolution. And now if parents begin to start opting out from this, they're going to opt out from everything else. And then we can't brainwash the kids anymore. We lose the power of indoctrination, which is our biggest weapon. But you look at this objectively. The Supreme Court is, you look just by the tone of the questions, it's going to be at least 6-3. And when they strike this down and give parents the right to opt out, it's going to be a massive victory for parental rights, parental authority, the independence and autonomy of the family, and above all, God-given individual rights and freedom. The issue before us is our children. Do they fall under the authority and responsibility of the parents? In other words, the natural God-given moral order? Or under the control of the state? Does the government own our children, and can they do whatever they want to our children? Doesn't matter if it's vaccines. It doesn't matter if it's the LGBTQ agenda and puberty blockers and hormones and sterilization, or now pushing transgenderism and gay sex on the kids. Okay, it doesn't matter. That's the issue. Now, I keep saying this is the hill to die on. This is it. And what happens in every society, trust me when I tell you this, and you can see it example after example. You take God out of the schools, God out of the home, God out of our culture. And this is what our founding fathers warned us against. The state comes in. You get rid of God, you then have an all-powerful state. The state, the government fills the vacuum. And that's what you're seeing now. And remember, this goes right, 250th anniversary of Concord and Lexington. Paul Revere, his famous ride, warning that tyranny's at the door. What did our founding fathers bequeath to us? That our fundamental rights come from Almighty, God Almighty. All right. Kuhner Man is a culture warrior today, and this is the ultimate culture war. Whose side are you on? Which side are you on? Kathy in Rochester. Thanks for holding, Kathy, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
Thank you for taking my call. I wanted to really just alert people to a website that they can go to, because I got involved in this in my town. Now, I don't even have children. I don't have nieces. I don't have nephews. I don't have children. But I got involved because I saw something that was absolutely disgusting. Allowing pornographic books to be in our school libraries. and in particular the high school that I graduated from, and I said, no way, Jose, and I got involved. And there is a group in our town, we fought it. These books are disgusting. I mean, most people have no idea what is in these books. They are, and when you see them, you will be horrified to see what children in high school are able to see. And the biggest problem is we should be demanding that not opting out, but opting in, that no children should be allowed to see these books unless the parents opt in. But it's just the opposite, which is typical for Democrats. So unless you opt out your child can be exposed to these books. So we had a group in our town that created a new website, and I ask all of your listeners to visit this website. You will be able to see these books because, like you said, due to FCC regulations, we cannot discuss what is in these books, and it's that pornographic. So the website it stands for Tri-Town for Protecting Children, and the website is T, so I'm Tom, F, Frank, P, Paul, C, cat.com. And you can see these books. You can learn about what's going on. And the person on Cape Cod who is trying to pass this other bill that you just spoke about, Right to Read bill, is the infamous Julian Sear in P-Town, who was gay himself. So everybody, these trans people, the gay people, they want all this pornography to be in schools because that's their lifestyle. So they want these kids to be exposed to this. And Jeff, you go online too and you look at this website, you'll be horrified. But there's another group too called the Massachusetts Family Institute, and they are fighting this. And what people don't realize, we have to support these groups with our money. It takes $100,000 for a state rep to be elected. That's a lot of money. If you are a conservative, if you're a Republican, you need to support your candidates with a donation, even if you send them $25, $20, $15. They need your money because the Democratic machine is funding these people. And the only way we're going to get conservative representation in the state is to support their campaigns. That's the only way that things are going to change. Support the Mass Family Institute. Conservatives have got to dig deep in their wallets and start donating some money to support these people. Because until we start doing that, we start getting involved, nothing is going to change.
Well, Kathy, just to piggyback off of what you're saying, and I agree with you, not 100, but 1,000%. The Mass Family Institute does incredible work. I'm a big fan of the people who run it. I'm a big fan of the organization. I believe Mike King is going to be there tomorrow speaking at our rally at noon at the State House in front of the Boston Commons. So I can always count on Mass Family Institute and people like Mike King. They're always fighting the good fight. So I'm with you all the way. No, Kathy, the question I have, and I think the question I have for the entire audience, and again, I wish it was just a Massachusetts issue. I mean, I don't want it in Mass. I'm just saying it's all over the country now. This case at the Supreme Court, this is Montgomery County, for God's sake, in Maryland. That's a wealthy county. And there's a lot of schools in Montgomery County. It's all over Maryland. It's all over California or New York or Connecticut or Rhode Island or Illinois or Minnesota. Large swaths of the country now. And our schools, our public schools, have become moral cesspools. It's a cesspool. And you're completely right. I know because I did this. I went to the local library. Okay, I don't want to say the name of the school. And because someone said, Jeff, you just got to go because your children now are in the public school system. And I want you to see what they could potentially access at the school library. Now, not the elementary school. I'm not saying that, but at the high school. You're right. I don't even think pornography, it's worse than porn. Porn is bad, but I'm saying it's worse than porn. You look at this and it has no business on school grounds, near children, near anybody who's a minor, near high school kids, elementary school kids, middle school kids. You're talking about stuff I can't even describe it. If I begin to describe it, I'm talking $2-3 million in fines, and iHeart's going to kick my ass out of here. I mean, it's so graphic and so perverse. The only thing I haven't seen, Kathy, although I've noticed in some pictures, okay, at least at the library that I went to, I haven't seen man-boy yet. Okay, and all kinds of very intimate acts. Let's just leave it at that. Very intimate. But I saw a couple, younger, older. Was that the older person an adult? It was borderline. So it's almost like you could pass it off as older teenager, much younger teenager. In other words, 17-ish on a 12-year-old. Okay, this, again, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you, but that's why parents are like, and you have this in what? Well, first of all, we're buying these books. Our taxpayer dollars, we're paying for this. School, and our children can access this in a library? Like, this is sick. Well, what is this? Seriously, what is this? Dante's Inferno? Like, really, what is this, Sodom and Gomorrah? Now, look, you're an adult. You want to access this kind of material. It's a free country. That's your business. But this has no business near kids, high school kids, minors, certainly not in any public school, certainly not in any school library. And when you make this argument, these idiots on the left, this is book banning. This is like Hitler. What are you going to have? Bonfires? They're just going to throw in books? No one's banning anything. You can buy this thing on Amazon. You can buy 1,000 copies if you want. You can read it all day, all night. You can have one in your toilet, for God's sakes, and read when you're sitting on the toilet. But it shouldn't be accessible to children and to minors. Am I wrong, Kathy?
No, Jeff, you're absolutely right. Our tax dollars should not be paying for these disgusting books, but that's what people have to fight, because the Democratic Party, and I'm going to tell you a little story. The Democrats have brass ones, and I mean solid brass. I'm going to give you a little example. I'm a hardcore conservative. I had Trump signs on my lawn. I've had a Trump sign out on my lawn before Election Day. And yesterday, a Democrat in the neighborhood, she's walking, and she actually had the audacity to come up to me and ask me if I would sign papers for her to become get on the election, be elected for the assessor. And I said, no. And I really should have said, are you crazy? But that's the kind of chutzpah they have. They've got chutzpah. I mean, she knows, she's seen my Trump sign. She knows I'm a Trump supporter. She had Kamala Harris signs and other people on her lawn. They don't care. And that's what I'm trying to get across to your listeners. They've got chutzpah. We, the conservatives, need to be as ballsy as they are. Get off your butt. Do something. Get involved. As Trump said, fight.
Amen. He wants to come. He would really want, he really wants to come and show his support. Grace is afraid I'm going to lose him. Can you believe this? I'm like, how would I lose my own? I'm on the air. Okay, 850 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 15 years old, Mike. Can you believe that? That's what Grace said. She goes, he starts driving in a year. By the way, he's already going through cars. I'm not on the iPad. He's like, Dad. He's going at dealerships now. He's like checking out these Well, that's what I said. He crosses the street. He's going to be driving in a year. By the way, he's already picking out his car. I'm like, Ashton, could you take it easy? I mean, who said Daddy's buying you a car? He goes, come on, Dad. And by the way, you know what he picks? A Ram pickup truck. And he goes, but Daddy, it's secondhand. I go, Ashton, I don't care if it's secondhand. What are they called now? Pre-owned or used or whatever? It's $30,000, Ashton. But do I look like a walking ATM machine to you? But anyway. So I don't know if you heard this or not, but anyway, so Grace, I don't know. I'm going to try to bring Ashton to the rally tomorrow. He wants to show up. He feels very strongly about this issue. And he says parents should definitely have the, control over their children and not the government. And so Grace is like, well, there's going to be a lot of people. There's going to be a big crowd. You may lose him. I'm like, What do you mean I'm going to lose him? Anyway, 8:51 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Dave in Beverly. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Jeff, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dave?
Not too bad at all. I just wanted to just insight. Everybody's jumping right off into the bandwagon on all the books and everything, but I'm thinking we should get deeper than that. We got to find out like who these authors are of these books, and it's like I think it's like it's to desensitize us to get to the real gist of the problem, and the problem is pedophiles. And now, if you're getting all these children in on all this, and we all get used to it, then when the real big names come out that I think are promoting all this, they won't be charged, or they'll just get a spanking on the wrist. Does that make sense at all?
You put your finger right on it. Dave, you're a genius. I'm telling you, you're a genius. Absolute genius. I guarantee you, your IQ, 140 minimum. Okay, probably 150, which is Einstein level and above. Dave, look, we know what the real cancer on our country is. And that is we have a ruling elite, a political and media and business or corporate class that is full of child molesters and pedophiles. That's just a fact. And that's why the Epstein files still haven't been released. Pam Bondi is still sitting on them. She refuses to release them. That's why it's one of the biggest scandals of the last 100 years. How many in Hollywood? How many on Wall Street? How many politicians? How many powerful people are into, forgive me, diddling kids? Or, young teenage boys or young teenage girls? And so the way out for them is to make pedophilia and having sex with underage boys or girls mainstream and normal, and hopefully one day legal. Because if it becomes more mainstream and more normal, then they don't face so much legal jeopardy. They're under tremendous pressure now with these Epstein files. They know if it gets released, people are going to be destroyed, people are going to go to prison, careers are going to go up in smoke. And so to protect themselves and to protect this clique, this cabal, this criminal cabal, they have to try to make pedophilia as normal and as acceptable as possible. And to do that, you have to keep grooming our children, and you have to desensitize the people, our society, and the parents. And look, Dave, this is going to be very hard for them to do. I think they're going to fail because I don't care. You just look at some of these books. Oh, Dave. Listen, I'm telling you, man, I don't care. Jeff, I don't know. Jeff, I've watched a lot of pornography in my life. Yeah, wait till you see this. What they're exposing these kids to, because, you see, it's not just the sexual acts. I got to be careful. I don't want to offend people, and I don't want to get fined. It's that it's involving young people who are underage in some of the most graphic, explicit ways imaginable. And so when you see an 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old in the very explicit images and words and pictures, I don't care. No normal human being is not utterly repulsed and disgusted by it. So it's going to be very hard for them, Dave. But you're right. That is the end goal. And look, it's the last taboo. I mean, outside of cannibalism, seriously, eating people. Okay. And I guess incest. But outside of that, it's the last taboo. You're seeing it in Europe. Already the Europeans are ahead of us. They're trying to decriminalize now pedophilia. Pedophiles now are, and even in this country, they're called minor attracted persons. So they're trying, that LGBTQ plus, they're trying to get into the plus. That's already, they're trying to get under that, that rainbow umbrella. So that's the goal. Now, I'm telling you, over my dead body, I'm not a tough guy. I don't claim to be a tough guy, but I'm telling you, once they go for the kids, I go for my gun. Then it's time for me to say, you know what? We've got to take it to the streets. There are some lines a society cannot cross, because then you're really descending into savagery and utter barbarism. And that's when you start normalizing having sex, adults having sex with children and children having sex with other children. And that's Epstein in a nutshell. And what is so unbelievable about the Epstein story and about his so-called, Orgy Island and the Lolita Express was how many powerful people, including, by the way, people on the Supreme Court, presidents, presidential candidates, leading members of Congress, I could go on and on, who were on that plane and went to that island again and again and again. And that's just Epstein. We're not talking P. Diddy. We're not talking about the freakouts. We're not talking about everything that we're now finding out about Hollywood. So yeah, Dave, you better believe it. They want to desensitize us, and they want to mainstream pedophilia and having sex with children, because that's their ultimate crime, and they know it. Dave, final word to you.
Well, it started from Hollywood down to Disney promotes it, Hollywood promotes it, and I hate to say it, but the Pope even promoted it. I mean, it gets pretty deep. It gets deep, right?
Well, look, again, I'm trying to stay away from the Pope because I don't like to speak ill of the dead, especially when they've just died, okay? But no, Dave, I'm sorry. You're right. He covered up child sex abuse in a church. That's it. There's nothing else to say. It's a fact. And he promoted, look it up, please don't take my word for it. He protected, shielded, and promoted McCarrick, Cardinal McCarrick, who's now been defrocked. And I broke a big story about him when I was at the Washington Times. This was like maybe 20 years ago. And I spoke to many of his abuse victims. That guy molested 13-year-old boys, altar boys. They were 12, 11, 13 years old. And Pope Francis knew about it. He protected him. He promoted him. He coddled him. He did everything he could to try to cover that up. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And they're lionizing this guy? In fact, now, do you see the garbage coming out of Fox News on this? And by the way, and CNN and MSNBC, how quick can they make him a saint? Are you serious? So, no, I'm sorry. But this is Francis's legacy, and that's the truth. And all you need to know about Pope Francis is this. I don't want to dump on the guy, but since they're ramming him down our throats day and night, nonstop coverage, okay, they're practically deifying him. They're sanctifying him now in front of our eyes. George Soros and his son Alex Soros. Look it up, please. Google it, DuckDuckGo, wherever you want to go. There it is. They say he was one of their closest allies. That on so many causes, he said he was one of us. That went to the heart of a quote-unquote open society, which is their Open Society Foundation. So, George and Alex Soros have said, we have lost one of our greatest allies. Now, if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know, nothing will. He was a socialist. He was a globalist. He was someone who championed open borders. He tried to do everything in his power to stop Trump from being elected. And yes, he covered up child sex abuse in the Catholic Church. And by the way, he's driven the church basically now into near bankruptcy. That's his real record. Fox doesn't want Jeff Kuhner on to talk about that. CNN won't have me on to talk about that. The Boston Globe won't interview me. Instead, it's puff piece after puff piece after puff piece. Because ultimately, Francis was one of them. He was part of the globalist elite. And that's why I have called him Lenin's Pope. You know that book, Hitler's Pope? which was a lie about Pope Pius, which was a complete lie, a smear job. No, he was Lenin's Pope. That he was a red Pope. He was the Obama of the Catholic Church. But I don't want to get sidetracked. I promise I won't speak ill of the dead. I've already broken my own rule. But, you ask, I answer. Dave, thank you very much for that call. Okay, joining me now, as she always does at this time, my better half, my wonderful wife, Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. Grace Vuoto. Grace, I've got to ask you, as a loving mother, as a loving parent with our two wonderful kids, Ashton and Ava, what do you make now of this very high-profile, very important Supreme Court case, Mahmoud v. Taylor? Should parents have the right to opt their young children out from LGBTQ storybook lessons and transgender propaganda? What say you?
Well, Jeff, they absolutely should have that right. These books were being introduced in an English class. And I read the descriptions of the book. On the surface, they seem very benign. But the point is to normalize all kinds of behaviors that people of different faiths would find objectionable. And the point is to introduce it at an early age so that children think it is all a legitimate lifestyle choice. And that would go contrary to the religious values that some parents are trying to instill. So I think it is a matter of basic religious liberty, and I think that the court will see it that way.
Grace, do you think that this should even be taught to young children? I mean, I agree with you. I think the Supreme Court is going to uphold the parents' right to opt out. I think it's pretty clear from the line of questioning. But even beyond the opt-out, option, should transgenderism, same-sex marriage, pronouns, all of it, should this be taught, or should it be, should they continue to teach this? Should they peddle this to our children in elementary school, middle, or high school? What say you?
I don't think they should teach it at all. And as somebody that's trying so hard to instill religious values into children, I realize, when you think about it, they're teaching all of these concepts. Do they ever teach a word like chastity? Like, you and I, as Christians, we have a certain set of values, which includes the celebration of chastity. They never include that kind of word, right? So it's not fair how they phrase the topic. They say, well, it's about education. No, it's not about education. It's about trying to encourage children to choose a certain lifestyle and making all lifestyle choices appear equally valid, which goes contrary to what is being taught in religious homes. They are not equally valid. I'm saying to the extent that what I'm trying to teach my children is, even when we're talking about, let's discuss purely heterosexual behavior, I am very strict about some things that other families might be okay with. For example, I don't want my children to live together before marriage. That's an example, right? These are values that every family has the right to instill in their children without the pressure of the kids thinking that the parents are going contrary to the norms of their generation. Do you know that the children will always say to parents, yeah, that was your generation. And you have to fight through that and teach them that, no, these are eternal values that are taught in each generation. But when they're introduced in the schools, it's even more difficult to convince them that you're on the side of the angels.
Should the schools have any role in sex education or in going on about your identity, whether it be your sexual identity or, who you want to love, who you want to marry, whatever just happened to reading, writing, math, science, call me crazy, maybe a little bit of civics and the Constitution? Have you noticed? They teach everything but what the kids need to teach. Am I wrong?
You know what I'm seeing, Jeff? That there's a long-term consequence to this early sexualization of our children, whether it's in the schools and the exposure they're getting on the internet. It's leading to young boys who can't function, especially young boys. If you notice, there's more and more stories that we're hearing about college kids not being able to finish their college degrees or just wandering, just drifting. I think there's a connection between this early sexualization and the lack of drive, the lack of ambition, the lack of motivation, the lack of leadership. I think it's all related. I think it's extremely disruptive, and I think we have to take a very firm stand against it. I don't believe we fully grasp the consequences of this instruction at an early age. We fully don't grasp the whole picture just yet.
What do you think the ultimate goal is? What is it that the left wants? Why, they're fighting these parents tooth and nail. They even promised initially the parents you could opt out from these LGBTQ storybook lessons and the transgenderism that they were teaching to the students, to these young children, grades 1, grade 2, grade 3. And then they said, no, you got it. No, your child, it's mandated. Your child has to come. If you don't like it, take your child out of school, homeschool, or send them to a private school. What is their ultimate goal? Why are they, for some reason, this is the hill now they want to die on. Why?
Is to invalidate the religious beliefs of all the major world religions, because the major world religions have a strict moral code. This is right and that's wrong. That means that if you actually believe in that moral code, you're passing judgment on the lifestyle of others. That's inevitable. You're saying, nah, that lifestyle is sinful. But what they want to do from an early age is invalidate the concept of sin itself, invalidate the idea that there is a right and a wrong when it comes to sexual behavior. And the very sad thing is, what I've started to tell my children? My prayer for you, I don't want to even hear about this sexual identity garbage. My prayer for you is I want you to find true love. Think about that. That's really the goal that we should have for all our children, that they find true love. But this is an obsession that I think takes them far from that.
We were in the car, what was it, a week ago or 2 weeks ago? I forget now. We went to the movies as a family. And then Ashton met a friend of his. Or I guess it was, it was a she. But this she insists on being called a he. Even though, as I said, you take a look at her, and she's definitely a she. There's no question about it. And remember in the car when we said, no, a she is a she and a he is a he. And do you remember what Ashton and Ava told us? I couldn't believe it. That this is the 21st century and that you and I are old-fashioned, and that if people want to identify as a she or a he, who are we to say no? You remember that, sweetheart?
Yes, and then I said, Ashton, for God's sakes, her boobs are bigger than mine. That's a she. And he actually started to laugh. So sometimes, you know what, humor and the common sense answer breaks through all of
that's the best response. But I was just thinking, boy, and we sent our kids to Christian school until they were in the sixth grade or whatever it was.
And actually,
so just a couple years in public school, and look how they're talking.
Yeah, and the conversation started saying, hey, Ashton, we met your friend. She's pretty. She's really grown. This is how I started. She's grown since the last time I saw her. And he's saying, is she identity? It's a he, Mom. I'm like, what? She's beautiful. She's cute. I like her hairstyle. And then as they went on, I'm like, what? Her boobs are bigger than mine. What are you talking about?
No, she had her hair was coiffed. She had makeup. She looked all woman to me. Let's just put it that way.
To anybody with eyes, Jeff. Anybody with eyes.
All right, Grace, we've got 1 minute left. Let me ask you, do you think this case is going to reverberate? And do you think it's going to lead to massive changes in education and parental rights around the country?
I think it is. It's going to have huge consequences, and I think it's going to embolden parents to take more and more and more action. And I want to end with this small story if I have time. One day, Ashton was not feeling well and didn't go to school. Then I got a call from the school counselor asking me, hey, did your son not come in because we're starting sex education? I said, no, he wasn't feeling well. Well, why? I said, do the children don't want sex education? I thought.
Yeah, and the answer was many of them actually skip class. 617-266-6868 is the number. Michelle in Arlington. Thanks for holding, Michelle, and welcome.
Nurse Michelle, how are you? It's been a while.
I'm good. How are you, Nurse Michelle?
Very good, thank you. 2 quick stories, and I need to thank you for something. I owe you a debt of gratitude. So I live in the great town of Arlington with the good governor, and with the help of Michael King and the Mass Family Institute, we had a meeting with the school board at the time when they were trying to change the quote language in the 4th grade anatomy class. Okay, 4th grade. They wanted to remove the words male and female, boy and girl, and replace them with person with penis, person with vagina, person with vulva. And as I stood there and said this to the school board, should we really be discussing that language in 4th grade? They just look at you like it's like you're the crazy person. Could you imagine Ava coming home and saying, Daddy, can we just talk about what I learned about vulvas today in 4th grade? It's a clown world we are living in. I also went with John Barrett and Brian Curry to North Andover. We had a meeting with the library board, okay? And so, great call by Kathy. She's exactly right. People have to know what is in these books that are at your elementary school library. So we stood and we read what was in the books, and it made everybody uncomfortable. Very graphic, sexual nature, and just nasty visual, like the graph, awful. And so the end, 6-0. They all voted to keep the porn in the libraries. Insane. We live in an insane world. But the point is, what you're doing tomorrow is just a great thing. We need to expose this. People need to show up. Parents need to know what is going on in their schools. And so I wanted to thank you because a couple of years ago you had the Freedom Rally to stop the mandates. And at the time I was involved with a lawsuit. There was nurses and healthcare workers being fired over the COVID vaccine. And you asked me to get the nurses there and stand with you on the State House steps. And when I did, I held a sign, and we amassed 100 more plaintiffs because of you, because of that rally, because you had Kuhner Country show up, and you had thousands of people there. Although it wasn't on the news, there were thousands of people that showed up at your rally, and you really make a difference. So tomorrow's going to be very important. I really hope people come. Please get involved with the great groups that are going to be there. You've got Julie Borres from Health Rights Mass, Candace from Health Action, obviously Mike King from Mass Family Institute. I heard a rumor that the real CDC, John Bowden, will be speaking. So it's going to be a great day. We need to show up and start supporting each other. We need to help all these freedom-minded groups, people that are actually trying to make a difference. We need to show up and support them. And you need to join these groups so that we all go to the State House when they have this vote about removing the religious exemption. It's exceedingly important. And Jeff, thank you for having that.
Oh, my pleasure. It's the least I can do, Michelle, and I hope to see you tomorrow, and thank you very much for that call and for your kind words. I truly appreciate it. Thank you again, Michelle. 617-266-6868 is the number. Look, we can easily win. I'm telling you, this is a very winnable issue for us. DCF, I don't want to, again, rehash the whole thing with the Rivera family, but they have really blown it with this family. It's a massive scandal. We can break DCF. I think we can make sure that we keep religious exemptions when it comes to whatever the issue, vaccines, puberty blockers, your child's education, what can be taught to your children in schools. But you got to show up. It's going to be tomorrow at noon at the State House in front of the Boston Common. Again, the rally is sponsored by American Made Action. I will be there. I will be speaking, so will be other speakers as well. Kuhner Country, let's show up, stand up, speak out, and let our voices be heard. Tony in Florida. Thanks for holding, Tony, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff, my fellow patriot, and God bless you.
Thank
Great
you.
to talk to you again.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You know, Jeff, I've come to the conclusion, I think a lot of people have, and just listening to the different callers, the great callers, the last couple of days, that the Democratic Party, that D for Democrat, it now stands for the devil. I mean, they are the party of the devil. That's what they are. I mean, you look at what they're trying to do by, indoctrinating the children and, in their, proponents of transgenderism and men and women's sports and the war in the family. And just to go outside of that for a brief minute, if you look at, these hands-off rallies all over the country, burning Tesla dealerships because there's a man, Elon Musk, who's volunteering his time to try to help our country. This movement of wanting to keep murderers and rapists in our country to harm the American citizens and the children. This crazy Senator Van Hollen who embraces a murderer and rapist in an El Salvador prison, and he flies down on our dime, on our tax dollar. What a disgrace he is. The guy he was looking in his eyes like he was falling in love with him. I mean, what a disgrace that was, right? And I mean, go back to the joint sessions when you had a 13-year-old cancer patient and you had, families of victims murdered by illegals, and the wife of a murdered Long Island police officer. She was in the audience, but they just sat there. Those Democrats. These people are satanic, Jeff. It's just really coming down to good versus evil. And it's just a satanic movement, Jeff. It's absolutely, it's just dangerous, Jeff,
Well, that's, you put your finger on it. It's dangerous. And, you would never allow a child to walk around with a loaded gun. And that's what we're allowing them to do to our children. And, and Grace is right. You start introducing these sick ideas to children in kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, which is obviously what they're trying to do. You're going to destroy those children. You're going to warp their minds. You're going to warp their souls, frankly, and you're going to ruin them. And already now we're starting to see the wreckage. So the question now is, are we willing to reclaim our rights and reclaim our families, reclaim our children, and ultimately reclaim our country? And that's the issue. And notice, Tony, the Democrats can never win in the light. They always have to fight in the dark and in the shadows. And look, I said it before, but I got to say it again because it's true. It was predominantly, again, not exclusively, but it was Muslim families in Montgomery County. It was, again, there were some Ethiopian Christians as well. But my point is, it was predominantly Muslim families who said, you're not doing this to our children. You know what? Maybe the infidel will allow you to do it to their kids, but you're not going to do it to our kids. And they've been protesting nonstop. They don't stop protesting. And now they put their money where their mouth is, and they've taken it all the way to the Supreme Court. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Let me just quickly throw another log on that fire. You want to talk about a sense of entitlement. How people, especially in liberal education, liberals, not just elementary, middle, or high school, but take a look at our elite universities. So, Harvard, you want to talk about hubris and arrogance, has now just sued the Trump administration. And why are they suing the Trump administration? Because according to them, how dare that President Trump and his cabinet, particularly the Department of Education, freeze the billions of dollars in federal funds to Harvard. Why? They say it violates their First Amendment, that this is money that is owed to them, that Trump is now trying to control what they can say and not say on campus, what they can protest on and not protest on. And so according to them, this is now the argument they're all using, that by freezing, remember, this is taxpayer money, this is our money, by freezing federal funds because of the rampant anti-Semitism on campus. Harvard now says it's violating their fundamental First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and now they're taking Trump to court, and they want the billions of dollars that he's frozen, unfrozen, and given to them. Now, my point is a very simple one. As I said on X last night, and I want to repeat it now. How the hell is Harvard entitled to billions and billions and billions of our taxpayer money? They're not entitled to our taxpayer money. In fact, the real issue is to me, the burning issue, the one that's as clear as day to me, is how the hell does a private university, and Harvard, at least in theory, is still a private university, even though they're swimming in federal taxpayer dollars. Okay, they get $9 billion taxpayer dollars a year. $9 billion. This is a private university sitting on a $53 billion with a B endowment. A $53 billion endowment. And they're still asking for taxpayer money? They're not entitled to a dime. Not a single penny. As Sandy said to me yesterday, she goes, Jeff, for the next 100 years, on that $53 billion endowment alone, Harvard could have every student at their university go for free. Attend for free. For free. And we still got to keep shelling out $9 billion a year. And when Trump says, you know what, you're allowing anti-Semitism to run wild on campus, Jewish students are being physically attacked, they're being harassed, they're being prevented from going into classrooms, you've got violent protests erupting on campus. No, either clean up your act, stop the Jew hatred, stop protesting on behalf of terrorists like Hamas, stop attacking, having students be attacked or prevented from going into buildings or going into classrooms. In other words, stop violating the fundamental civil rights and liberties of your students, or else you're not going to get any more money. They're the victim. Their argument is, you owe us the money. We owe you the money? Most Americans do not have a college degree. They have a high school a diploma. That's it. So you want a country, and mostly people with a high school diploma, to give their hard-earned taxpayer money to one of the most elite, privileged institutions in the world that is also one of the wealthiest. I'm sorry, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. And on top of that, we are $37 trillion now in debt. Trillion dollars in debt. And you want us to continue to give you $6, $7, $8, $9 billion a year? So we who have nothing and are basically broke have to continue to shell out and give obscene amounts of money to those who have phenomenal, obscene amounts of wealth and obscene amounts of money. So the $53 billion endowment, that's not enough? You got to keep shaking us down for $7, $8, $9 more billion every single year? And when we say no, because you guys are allowing Jew hatred and Palestinian terrorists to rampage on your campus, suddenly you're the victim? If I was Trump, you don't just cut off the $2 billion. He's frozen about $2 billion. I get rid of the whole $9 billion. No more taxpayer money should go to Harvard or Yale or Princeton or Columbia or any of these other elite Marxist anti-Semitic universities. Period. Full stop. Your students already pay enough in tuition. You've already been racking up enough of an endowment. You guys can now swim on your own. The taxpayers should not be underwriting universities that claim to be private and that, frankly, some of them have more money than countries do. So, no, I don't think Harvard should get any more money. I think Trump should cut off all federal funding. And honestly, our taxpayer money should be used for many other things. The last thing it should do is to pay these out-of-touch, America-hating professors and students. And just think about it. We're paying them all of this money to teach these students to hate America, hate Jews, and hate the West. I don't think so. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Marilyn in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Marilyn, and welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Marilyn. How are you?
Good.
Go ahead, Marilyn. The floor is yours.
Yes, I'm calling to explain a situation that would apply, if you connect the dots, to what's going on in the schools about sex education. And I'm sure that everybody wants to hear this story. An American woman married a foreigner man, and in a short time, the American had hepatitis B. They were called a few years later when, by the CDC, when the foreigner went to a doctor's appointment for something else. And that the American, the CDC informed that the American has developed resistance to the hepatitis B. And that the foreigner was born with it. Born with it. So they could continue relations, but not with anyone else. And they were divorced, so after that, both of them cannot have relations with anyone else. How's that for apples?
Oh, wow. Holy, wow. Geez. I don't know. I just, what happened to the days when, you went to school, you got an education, maybe after a while in high school, you get a girlfriend or a girlfriend gets a boyfriend. You fall in love. Either afterwards you go get a job or you move on to college and then get married. Boy, those days are long gone, huh? Patrick in New York. Thanks for holding, Patrick, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. I wanted to switch topics a little bit and then swerve back into what you were talking about with Harvard. Right now, the president is trying to negotiate the extension of the 2017 tax cuts. And he's being given a lot of pressure by the Democrats and some Republicans to raise the marginal rate back to 39.5 for high earner taxpayers, which includes a lot of S corporations where the income passes through. Now, I did a back of the envelope kind of analysis of all the major endowments, university endowments, in the that have an asset value over $1 billion, and there's 147 of them. And those assets total about $750 billion. Based on what my analysis is, that we would not have to raise anybody's taxes if these endowments became taxable and we removed the nonprofit status on them. Just using what is in the tax code for taxes on dividends and capital gains. If you add the non-university endowment funds, the asset values go up to about $1 trillion, The Mormon Church alone is sitting on approximately $125 billion in assets. I think we should, pressure our congressmen to make these endowments taxable, not as a punishment for their bad behavior, but for, as Bernie Sanders says, everybody has to pay their fair share. What do you think?
Look, Patrick, I don't know about churches. I'll be honest with you. I haven't quite thought that one through. I can just tell you this definitively. Colleges and universities now are big business. It's not what it used to be, where they truly had an educational mission. So I understand why they had a tax-exempt status. I get that, at least in the past. You see, so much of American life has changed. Sadly, a lot of it for the worse, some for the better, to be honest, but a lot of it for the worse. Again, I'm not dodging your question. I'm just like, for example, look, I think pharma used to be great. Really, traditional big pharma used to be outstanding. But man, they've gotten so greedy over the last, say, 10, 15, 20 years that I think they've now become out of control and become in many ways a part of the problem. I'm probably going to touch on it tomorrow. You've got Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who yesterday, to his credit, came out and said, we're banning now 9 dyes, food additives, that clearly contain poison. In fact, petroleum. I'm not kidding. Petroleum products. And for decades, the FDA told us, it's so healthy. It's fine. It's not a problem. Well, the new FDA commissioner came out yesterday. The new FDA director came out yesterday, forgive me, and said, well, we were lying to you. It really was bad for your health. They do contain petroleum and some poisons in them. Like, what? So what I'm saying is things have changed in America. And college today and universities today is not what they were, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, never mind 100 years ago. Harvard is a big business. That's what it is. They're in the business of making money. Tax them. Columbia is in the business of making money. Tax them. In fact, I think most big universities now are in the business of making money. These, especially private universities, even public, but especially private universities. Tax them. Get rid of their tax-exempt status. To be honest, I would go further than Trump. Just using Harvard as an example. The $9 billion, again, that's our money. So you and I are paying for Harvard. So we're paying for them to hate us, because that's what they really do. They're teaching to hate ordinary Americans and the American people. So we're giving them our money to teach the kids to hate us, and we're giving them money on top of the $53 billion that they already have. It's disgusting. And it's school after school after school. So I would cut the $9 billion, or whatever it is for other universities. No more federal funding. None. And get rid of your tax-exempt status. You pay taxes like anybody else. And that would mean hit them at the top rate. What's the problem? And those are all the institutions that have all of these professors and academics and scholars who go on about how fundamentally evil capitalism is and how we have too much inequality in America, and the 1% versus the 99%, and that the rich don't pay their fair share. Well, you start paying your fair share. Look what a bunch of phonies and frauds they are, Patrick. You're completely right. They're all a bunch of hypocrites. So you see, they want to raise our taxes. They want to soak us. But they don't want to have their money touched. Not even a cent. Not even a cent. In fact, no. We who have none, or our country is bankrupt, or so basically we have no money or little money because we're living check to check, or our country has basically no money left because we're going broke. We have to give them, who are uber wealthy, our money. I've heard of Robin Hood socialism. Take from the rich to give to the poor. But this, what these liberals have now done, take from the poor to give to the rich. It's reverse Robin Hood. and still be a victim in the process. I'm not. You can't. I'm telling you, you can't make this stuff up. No money to Harvard. No money to any more of these elite universities, and get rid of their tax exempt status. Blank you. Bye bye.